Hi, I'm Tim, and welcome to WatchYouWant.com. Thanks for logging on. Today, you're looking at a living legend of modern Panerai watch production. This is the original 1950. That's right, the Fiddy. Part of the Special Edition series of 2002, the Panerai Luminor 1950 was the pioneer of the modern move towards this larger 47mm, highly contoured case, which subsequently has been reduced back to 44mm while retaining its curvature and complex lines. This style has really begun to define the look of Panerai in the latter half of the 2000s and into the 2000 teens. Realistically, this watch began to mark Panerai's transition from a company that was struggling to get off the ground with a couple of models to a diversified, mature, comfortable luxury manufacturer that had a strong sense of its identity post-military. Now, what this watch brought into play was a case that referenced the transitional period of Panerai combat dive watch production, exiting the 30s, entering the 40s, and moving towards the 1950s. The watches did change. Although they were similar and still built by Rolex and modified by Panerai, you began to see, first of all, the dials change. No longer did you have the California dials or simple indexes, but you had a combination of indexes and Arabic numerals at the four corners. You began to see that the cases were more complex, more finished. No longer did you have spindly soldered wire lugs, but you had integrated, thick, burly lugs so that you could rest assured that in adverse conditions they wouldn't simply snap and you wouldn't lose the watch. Not a small consideration when you're making combat watches. And moreover, the cases became a little bit more highly contoured as more attention was put into manufacturing the watches for longevity and durability. Correspondingly, more thought was put into making them look reasonably finished as industrial products rather than the prototypes that they'd been during the 1930s. And what you had by about 1950 was this shape, with the crowning accomplishment of Panerai combat dive watch engineering, the device protecting the crown. Its iconic crescent shape debuted with the civilian Luminor back in 1993, but realistically, it only came into play during the 1950s on the original Panerai combat dive watches, which is why it features here on the 1950 and not on prior Radiomir references that were designed to reference the 30s and 40s. Everything about this watch is accurate to the 1950s, with the exception of that little tag on the dial, 1950. That's a nod to the collectors and to the fact that the watch was produced in only 1,950 units in 2002. Now, when I talk about the watch representing Panerai's coming of age as a luxury manufacturer, what I really mean is that Panerai had built very utilitarian watches as a military supplier, but also in its first year as a manufacturer of civilian watches. With the 1950, the watches didn't just become historical tributes, more true to history, and a little bit larger. They became more beautifully designed. You could see that this swell and complex curvature of the case, you could see how it bows inward at the same time that it tapers front to rear. It's a more thoughtful shape than the squat cushion that debuted on the 44mm Panerai Luminor, and it's more thoughtfully finished. In addition to the brushed satin finish that you have on the lugs in the case, you have a beautiful polished bezel, and although some Panerai historic references feature acrylic to be true to history, and for the refractive effect that you get when light passes through acrylic, this one is merely heavily domed to create some of that beautiful bubble-like refraction, but at the same time it's sapphire so it won't scratch, and that's what you expect of a luxury watch manufacturer. You also expect thoughtful upscale touches like these rose gold hands. Both the hour and the minutes, as well as the small seconds at 9 o'clock, are actually rendered in 18-karat rose gold, and it's these thoughtful accents that set this apart from a pure military tribute model. Moreover, in addition to the complex case, the thoughtful detailing, and the high level of finish, there's a very special strap on this watch. Now, while calfskin straps on Panerai dive references and Panerai historic tributes are par for the course because that's what the originals used, this one is particularly supple. It's bolstered more than any of the originals would have been, and with the kind of tan, I would say light brown colored hand stitch, a very tight pattern. It's actually a bit of a monotone look from an arm's length, so it's very seamless in terms of how it reads on the wrist. This watch reads as strap, case, strap, with that beautiful black 1950 dial. The fact is, the watch actually wears well on a normal-sized wrist. Despite being larger, Panerai put a lot of thought into the way the case was shaped. Now here you can see the watch on my 6 1/3 inch wrist. That's about 16 centimeters for our metric friends. And you can see that it fits well. It's a stylish look. It's a versatile look. Maybe it's not the ultimate dress watch aesthetic for those with smaller wrists, but the fit is not in question. It's merely a question of whether you like a large watch style. And Panerai has an authenticity to it with respect to size that most other brands don't have. These watches were designed to be visible and useful in adverse conditions, low light, combat situations. So that's Panerai's excuse, and as far as I'm concerned, with these being true to history and the 1950 model in particular being so, that's a legitimate excuse. I'll accept that right up front. It's a style, but it's also the heritage of the brand, and to make it smaller, that would be the affectation. Now, the watch is powered by a Panerai caliber OP, what's known as an OP11. It's based on a Unitas 6497. It's very rugged. It is chronometer certified. One thing that we've lost since 2002, as the Panerai watches have gone upscale and Panerai has gained that sense of itself as a luxury manufacturer, we've lost the chronometer certifications. The in-house movements are beautifully made. They offer a lot of functionality and complications that you couldn't get in these original early Vendôme, early 2000s, mid to late 90s references. But they're not COSC certified anymore, and to me that was kind of a romantic refinement that the watch has packed, because Panerai's history is as a manufacturer of cases, rugged instruments, combat instruments. It's not known as a watch maker per se in the terms of engineering, movement construction, and for me, this beautiful rugged pocket watch movement that they used to put in here, the Unitas 6497, had a romance about it that evoked the original Panerai combat divers. Everything from the swan's neck regulator to that giant balance wheel sitting on a balance cock. It just looks vintage, it feels right, it suits the case, and it suits the history of the brand. And the bridges are beautifully decorated with a repetitive Officine Panerai script. There's radial graining of the wheels, polishing of some of the screws. There's heat oxidation of the other screws, beautifully heat blued, and of course there's that violet shock of the rubies that are mounting the going train wheels. It's just a colorful, beautifully finished, historically evocative image, and it suits this watch well. And this watch is well suited to collecting, because if you're going to buy a special edition Panerai, you want to buy it with the full boxed sets, all of the documents of provenance, every original factory accessory, tool, hang tag, and bauble, and this watch has all of it, from the original warranty card, the chronometer certificate, the jeweler's tool so you can get straight to strap swapping with your Panerai. Heck, it even includes a special maroon leather alternative factory Panerai accessory strap, the original bezel protecting plastic, and the movement sticker. Everything you would have received from an authorized Panerai dealer in 2002 when this watch was red hot, you get it today. The 50 is still universally respected. This is the PAM00127 Panerai Luminor 1950, available from watchyouwant.com as a full collector's set. If you're looking for a classic, modern Panerai reference, I'm confident this PAM127 is going to be the watch you want.